this edition of Business Supes, where we interview successful local business owners and learn a little bit about them, their business, and their business superpower. Today, I am joined by Josh Zajac from Hammer Stars. Josh, thanks so much for being with us today, man.
For having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So usually the first question I like to start off with is your origin story, right? Because every superhero has an origin story. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your business.
So I mean, my origin story is kind of in real estate and mixture of construction. I grew up, my dad did construction, my mom's boyfriend was, after they were divorced, I hung siding, I did roofing, moved to Tulsa to go to ORU, got a business degree, met a guy while still in college who was doing a lot of remodeling rental properties, flipping them, selling them. So kind of worked with him for a little while and then got into remodeling myself. Ended up in property management and flipping. So I started out working with a lot of investment type real estate and construction. And then whenever I was introduced to the HBA, I started moving more and more into remodeling. So Hammer Stars started it in 2014, and it's evolved more and more from service and investor relations and property manager type relationships to more and more remodels, add-ons, attic build outs, garage add-ons, things like that. I would say is what we predominantly do today.
Very cool. So you've been around since 2014. So I imagine you've probably seen some pretty interesting times. What's the most interesting thing? Let's go with this. What's the most interesting thing that you've seen as part of a remodel?
I don't know. I think some of the old houses have some of the most interesting like things that just kind of you don't really know what you're going to get. I mean, the more you do it, you kind of get familiar with different ages of houses and you kind of know what's behind the walls and under the floors and things. But some of those houses that are like 1940s and older, I've run into about a year ago. I had a house that it was a small bathroom, and after we did a little pier and beam in the crawl space, and then afterwards, when we were done, we put new tile, a new shower, did all that, and then the floor actually started bowing up, and I was like, "What on earth is happening?" So we had to do kind of a reverse pier and beam to pull the floor down because the old tile was so thick and heavy with concrete that when that framing of the floor joist relaxed, it actually went up. So it's the first time I'd ever had that happen. So we had to figure out the opposite of supporting it and pulling it back down level. So we had to get creative. So we run into things like that. That's like, I've never run into this, but if we put our heads together, we'll come up with a solution. So
there you go. So it sounds like obviously you've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas as it comes to the construction. So what was it that made you decide that you wanted to own your own business versus just being an employee?
Couple things. I mean, my dad always preferred working for himself, so that was kind of instilled. My mom had her own business for a time too. But then when I was fresh out of college, I worked for a guy and he was just an entrepreneur. And I think that's where it really happened. I just saw that there was more opportunities out there running my own business. So I've owned several businesses. Hammer Stars is like my fourth or fifth business. So.
Okay, very cool. So what is it about owning your own business that is appealing to you?
There's really no ceiling to your success. I mean, you can run a business and mean, some guys kind of have a ceiling if they're not really entrepreneurial, but they still have freedom of their schedule. So that's a big part. You have a freedom of your schedule, how you want to spend time with your family. Um, you know, you're your own boss. So, but as far as freedom financially, I think that really comes through creating systems, being able to replicate yourself. Um, that's how you kind of you kind of have a retirement set if you can build it correctly. So that's kind of my better uh, reasoning for it. I think there's a lot more potential if I build the right team, build the right systems, and just treat people right.
Yep. And it's interesting you say that because I think, and they may say it in a little bit different ways, but almost every business owner I talk to, when I ask them that question, there's some form of freedom tied into it, whether it's the freedom to be their own boss or the freedom to make as much money as they want or the freedom to control their time. So that does tend to be an underlying theme that we see with with successful business owners. So that's really cool.
Freedom to be
So you
creative too. Like not everywhere you work, you get to just come up with any idea and like do it. So I mean, I felt like the guy I worked for before I became a business owner, he gave me a lot of that freedom. So by the time it was said and done, I was running some of his businesses. Um, and then I've been able to give people that work with me the opportunity to somewhat run my business and grow that way too. So that's fun to me, you know, to be able to be
yeah,
creative and apply different ideas and trial and error, you know.
and I love the way you did it because you let somebody else pay you to learn how to do the things, right? So it was kind of an entrepreneur before you were an entrepreneur, which tends to lead to some pretty successful business owners as well.
Right.
So you mentioned several people in your life, mentors. So how do you keep your saw sharp? Do you have a mentoring relationship with somebody? Do you read a lot of books, podcasts? I mean, how do you keep growing, Josh?
I mean, one, HBA relationships, local level, national level. I feel like even my competition and remodeling, even though everyone doesn't always divulge every secret. People are very easy about giving advice and kind of giving me standards. I've worked with companies. Hammer Stars has worked closely with other remodelers locally, helping them with jobs and learning from them everywhere from sales and just seeing how they do things. So I've been able to pick up pieces from other people who've been in the business a lot longer than I have. I do read books. I mean, I think Traction is one of my favorite books. That's really helped me really know how to be productive with a team. I mean, there's a lot of business books, some podcasts, and just having a team that we kind of read books together. I'm like, it's not just me. So I've done coaching before for a while. That was really beneficial. And then I've had a couple business relationships that were through seasons, very much mentor like business people in my life. So
Very cool. And I think that's a important part of having a successful business is, there's the saying, you're either green and growing or you're red and rotting, excuse me. So, the fact that you continue to push yourself and look for ways to grow, I think is pretty impressive. So what's the outlook for 2023? What do you see happening for Hammer Stars?
well, honestly, I think it's going to be a big growing year, even though we're kind of heading into a recession if we're not haven't been in one for
Mhm.
going on a year now anyway. Um, I've never really done marketing before. I mean, I just kind of threw money at stuff from an amateur perspective. I've finally teamed up with someone that's helping us. And from December till now, it's already picked up a pace. So that's been good. We have a long-term plan that we're easing into. And then hopefully we had a slower year last year as things tightened up with interest rates. Leads slowed down, word of mouth leads slowed down. So we're getting a lot more leads from actual marketing now. We're getting more referral leads from the past. I think through the slow year last year, we built a lot of systems in place to help us on this next growth period. So I think we're going to grow a lot the next year and years ahead.
Very cool. All right, so here's the big question that kind of prompted this whole interview series to begin with. What would you say your business superpower is?
I would say creating systems would be one, and then I would say just seeing capabilities and talents in people and pulling those out of them and empowering them to be the best they can be. I'd say those.
Okay, very cool. So what are some things that you've done to help empower people grow?
I've put people in, kind of put people in positions that they're not always ready for. But I kind of push them and oversee them without completely micromanaging them, but just kind of coming alongside and mentoring. I've helped people learn some of the trade type work and construction, but also just like in project management, and sales, different types, and just how to run an office. I've done that in a lot of ways. I've had people come across my path just randomly that seem like honest, loyal people, and kind of see where they sometimes things start rising up, and in a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, they're doing something completely different than they ever expected or what I even hired them to do. Just kind of finding where their niche is and helping them push them in that direction. Some people no longer work with me. I've just sent them on and they've done their own thing, so some people stay around.
That's really cool because so many business owners are afraid to give up control, and it's so hard to grow your business if you're not willing to give some of those things up and let people do the $20 an hour work so you can focus on the $500 an hour work. So kudos to you for doing that too. Last question here. So if you could think of one piece of advice to share with other business owners, maybe they're new business owners, maybe they've been around for a while, what golden nugget would you share with other business owners?
I don't know, I would say finding balance with family, with friends, with business. Having boundaries in place and really sticking to them and just believing. Like, I'm a man of faith. I just feel like when you put boundaries in place, put your family first, God will bless your business and things will kind of work themselves out in the place. Even though sometimes you feel like you need 100 hours in a week to accomplish things, but when you prioritize properly, you can oftentimes wisdom and ideas and grace will come into place to where you can do that same amount of progress in 40 hours or with the right people and the right systems. You don't have to just push yourself and be away from other priorities that are more important than money, So relationships, that would be my biggest advice.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's some great advice. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. Thanks for taking some time to join us today, man. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.